To say that the Fairly OddParents had a massive fall from grace would be an understatement. I barely know where to begin with this show screwing up because it's hard to pick an actual point. From its consistent addition of new characters to the cast, which range from well received to absolutely awful. And when we're not adding random characters to the new cast, we're excessively using people like Mr. Crocker and Mr. Turner. And then there's the voice direction. Seriously. One of the most difficult things for me to get used to was the voice direction for A New Wish. I was so accustomed to the voice direction of the later seasons of The Fairly Odd Parents. What was that voice direction? Well, that direction was to scream as if Black Bolt was being attacked by Thanos. A New Wish, thankfully, fixes this. I know what you're thinking. Cyril, isn't there a lot of callbacks to the original show? Well, yes. This isn't a reboot, this is a revival, a sequel to the original show. I'm just happy it's a sequel to the original show and not that awful sequel Fairly Odder. Seriously, whose idea was it to put a sitcom in something as high concept as Fairly Odd Parents? At least it keeps the continuity of the original show. Well, continuity in air quotes. By the nature of a show like Fairly Odd Parents, it's going to need a great deal of editing because that's what you get in a show that follows a strictly formula plot with very loose continuity. My general sentiment on story continuity is rather simple. The story you tell better be interesting to justify retconning or even having this continuity in the first place. A New Wish does this rather well. One of our first links to the old show, and by extension our time frame of reference for the old show and the new show, is Dev Dimmadome, grandson of Doug Dimmadome, owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome. He's basically Remy Bucksaplenty as a character, except way more fleshed out. I'll get more on Dev and his relationships later, but in terms of past major human characters, we don't really see them until the back part of the show. It gives us time to build some lore and identity for this show, not riding the coattails of the original. Did I say lore? Well, yeah. The original leaned heavily into episodic storytelling. This one's also episodic, but it's far more serialized. Remember this character next to Timmy in the original? Now he's plot relevant. And oh boy, is Dale Dimmadome a dimma douchebag. Mr. Tipton is less awful than this guy. Dale is such a dimma douchebag who treats his parenting like a business that he names his only son, get this, Development Devin Dimmadome. I can't even. Did an actual woman, did you not just clone yourself? Because he's rich enough to do that, to have this child. Because I can't see anyone actually wanting to marry you, or carry your child to term, or do whatever, unless you paid her. And even then, I'm not sure if that's going to actually work out because they're probably going to say the deal's off. So let's talk about the good things before I get more into the Dimmadome stuff. I like the 2D moments in this mostly 3D show. The 2D moments help people who watch the original show adjust to the Hartman art style transition to 3D. This style reminds me of what they use for Big Nate, though one of the difficulties is 3D modeling. You can't go absolutely bonkers like you can with, well, 2D animation. I'm sure these comments still hold up, but an animator who worked on the original Kung Fu Panda movie said that water, clothing, and fur/hair are absolutely pains to deal with in 3D animation, and the first few episodes can come off as very pedestrian, especially by the standards of the Fairly Odd Parents, but at the same time, the back half of the show, in terms of production order, do have a lot more crazy moments, so I'm just thinking it's a matter of just getting their footing together. There's an entire episode in the back half dedicated to Hazel turning into pasta because of pasta puberty. I suppose now is probably the best time to talk about the overarching plot of the series. Hazel recently moved to Dimmadelphia, where her father got a new job working for AJ. Yes, that AJ. Hazel is rather lonely because her brother's off to college, and well, she is in a new place overall. And look who happens to be her neighbors. You get the usual antics. Structurally, I compare this to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, where it's rather episodic, but things in those episodic episodes actually become either important or lead to something important in later episodes. The various antics Hazel goes through ends up catching the attention of Dale Dimmadome. Dale's constant flouting of his son leads to Poof, now renamed Perry because Poof is apparently a homophobic slur, to become his godparent. And Dev's constant desire for parental approval enrages him to the point he realizes his dad's obsessed over two things: business and Hazel, who is a threat to his business because the more wishes she makes, the less likely people are going to buy into his nonsense. Dev's rage has him fall under the thrall of Irep, a renamed Foop, who even Foop finds it annoying, but what can he do? Leading to a confrontation where Dev takes over Fairy World with the anti-fairies, leading Hazel and her friends and her brother to help save everyone. Hazel has this rule-free wish and basically says her friends and her brother can remember Fairy World and all about the magical creatures. The chains of the rules have been broken, now we wait for Season 2. Honestly, while A New Wish does tread some similar plot elements to the original in terms of specific episode wishes, the relationships are truly where this series shines. Serialization means you can take full advantage of continuity. Ahem, Dev and Hazel. I find Dev and his father quite interesting. We saw Mr. Turner's stupidity and Vicky's malice be absolutely played for laughs. Mr. and Mr. Turner in one episode, even in the earlier seasons, decided to hire these obviously evil demon cultists to babysit their son after Vicky was unavailable. And that's honestly on the low end of their malice and stupidity. Dale's neglect of his son is never played for laughs. I think the only time it is when he brings up the lemonade stand he was forced to work in. Yet, despite hating Vicky, he still hires Vicky for his son's birthday party. Why would he hire Vicky, you may ask, given his personal hatred of her? Dale made his money in big tech. He wrote an algorithm to find a party princess for his son. That's how little he cares for him. He lets his son be raised by algorithms. That can be a social commentary in so many ways. Then you go, wait a minute. Putting up with Vicky, a neglectful parent. Dev, at the surface level, may be a deconstruction of Remy Bucks aplenty, except he really isn't. He's a play on Timmy. Dev is always flanked by two drones who did his every bidding in a way that made him contrast Hazel, but at the same time, it's to reflect him and Timmy. Furthermore, when he finally gets a fairy godparent, Perry, aka Poof, he keeps the drones, and Perry shapeshifts into the drone at least one time. In a way, he mirrors Cosmo, Wanda, Poof, and Timmy. And what makes him give up his ambition to impress his dad and stop working with the anti-fairies in their hostile takeover of Fairy World? Long story. And when push comes to shove, it's Cosmo, Wanda, and Perry who talk him into reversing what he's done. Dev is Timmy, in all but name, wealth, stature. I can see why they made him connected to Dale Dimmadome. They needed a tangential enough connection to Timmy while not demonizing the old cast. Overall, I think this is a great revival, and we'll be looking forward to its future with great interest. Obviously, it does have its flaws. Earlier episodes feel very mundane for what something called Fairly OddParents should be. Seriously, being friends with teachers, okay, it was a good moral message, but it's rather mundane in the grand scheme of things. Though the wishes would get more over the top over the time. They do fight a demigoddess who possesses people with the power of mask in the back half of the season. This is 3D, so they had to build a foundation and a library of models they could use before going nuts, so I can excuse that to an extent. I'm invested in the characters and their storylines, and hope they do expand more upon them in the future. In terms of Hazel's supporting cast, I really only care about Jasmine and Dev because, they got focus episodes. Hopefully this is rectified in the future. And now the status quo has effectively been replaced with a new one. I can't wait to see what these people get with their status quo change. Hell, Dev could have kept his memory, at least have it restored, because Hazel wished for her friends and her brother to keep their memories, and you always know be careful what you wish for with this whole series. Considering how much Hazel does consider Dev a friend, even if he's a prick, it's going to be interesting to see someone lose a godparent and try to wrestle them back and keep those memories. Hopefully we'll see the other magical creatures. So yes, support the show so we can get a season 2. I want to know what nonsense will happen next with Hazel and her friends and her brother knowing about fairies and how this changes the whole dynamic of the world. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. This is Cyril signing off.